Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and today we're doing a little bit of a revisit for Ryse, Son of Rome on the Xbox One. I know you guys are like, Tony, what are you even talking about? Wasn't that terrible game that looks really good and was terribly historically inaccurate by Crytek? Yes, it was. It was also a launch title for the Xbox One, and it was a game that really didn't have a really great reception from anyone. But it was a game that still had some good stuff going on with it. It's a game that I actually thoroughly enjoyed. It's not at all perfect, and there are a lot of things that I wish they would have done that they didn't do, and there are a lot of things that they did that I wish they didn't do. So we're going to talk about that, because I think Ryse, Son of Rome just missed the mark. I think this game very much could have been a memorable and practically unforgettable launch title for the Xbox One. Instead, it was a launch title that, honestly, a lot of people have already forgotten about. A lot of you probably don't even know it launched on the PC at one point. Its standout element was the fact that it looked insane, right? CryEngine, Crytek, it's a gorgeous-looking game. It still holds up really well. The level of detail on the armor and the weapons and the equipment that you see inside of the game is absolutely phenomenal. It's Crytek doing what they do best with the CryEngine. There's no doubt about that. So if they wanted a game to demonstrate the power of the Xbox One, this was definitely the way to go, and I think that was the route that they decided to take. At the same time, as you'll see once we start playing the game, they wanted to make a game that was accessible to a wide audience. Because it's a launch title, you kind of have to do that, right? You have to make a game that everyone wants to play. And this is where everything starts to go wrong. So let's play, right? We're gonna get a little bit of combat. We'll talk about some of the issues I have with the game. Honestly, the biggest problem, the thing that breaks my heart the most, is that the overall presentation of Ryse, Son of Rome is pretty fantastic. It's a beautiful looking game. The combat feels good. There's a lot of heft and weight behind your sword and behind your shield block. You feel like a Roman badass, and who doesn't want to do that? How many Roman, third-person action games do we have? Very little. I can't even think of one off the top of my head right now. When I think Roman Empire, Roman Centurions, I think RTSs. I think strategy games. I don't think third-person action game that is completely drool-worthy, So the game stood out for that reason. I actually enjoyed the story and the characters and the presentation, and I'm no, historian when it comes to Roman history, so I don't really know where the game went wrong, despite a lot of people saying there were a lot of things that didn't make sense. It's a game. It's about having fun, and there are a lot of moments and elements in Ryse, Son of Rome that are a lot of fun. But then there are a few small ones that just throw the whole thing off the edge of a cliff. Before we hop down into combat here, I want to point out something. There are 4 difficulty modes available in the game. We're playing on Centurion. The only one higher than Centurion is Legendary. You have to beat the game to unlock it. And since I'm on a new save, because I lost my old save, we're playing on Centurion. So let's get into combat and just remember what I just said about the 4 difficulty levels. Alright, so these are the QuickTime events that were so well recognized when they first launched and revealed the game. Everybody was like, oh, QuickTime events everywhere. And we'll talk about them a little bit more in a moment here. Let me just finish hacking this guy's head off here. Oh, that's gonna hurt. And he's dead. Okay, so those are the QuickTime events, right? Now, you can actually play the game in 2 ways. One way is to actually show the buttons. The second way is what I've been doing to increase the difficulty of the game and what I did when I played it originally, which is to just have the color of the button, it can only be 2 buttons, which doesn't make it that difficult, it's either X or Y, appear as a highlight on the enemy that you're fighting. Now, here's where the real issue herein lies. I actually failed a couple of those QuickTime events. You'll notice that nothing happened. The execution still went through. The game uses an arcade point system. The only thing that you lose from failing those QuickTime events is points, regardless of the difficulty. And here is where one of the biggest problems with the game came in. Where's the challenge in that? If you're gonna put a QuickTime event, at least make some sort of substantial failing point. Have that dude counter me, have me lose a substantial amount of health. Do something about it. Now, I know some people would just straight out say QuickTime events aren't the way to go, but I'm not 100% against the way that they were done in this game. I actually enjoy the idea of using them in a sort of, I guess you could say a high tension situation like that, where you're trying to execute an enemy. I'm okay with that. There's a lot of games that use a similar system. You know, Rocksteady with their Batman games, a similar combo system that's all about just, you know, button timing. That's one button. Why not have the two choices between the buttons? I'm okay with that. That really doesn't bother me that much. But it's the fact that I'm never punished for failing one of those quick time events in that high tense situation. I mean, it's already easy enough. There's only 2 buttons I can press. And then there's no way to actually fail it. Again, regardless of the difficulty mode that you play on. Now, I know this is asking a lot of something that isn't even represented in the game, but one thing that a lot of developers have proven over the years is that you can make a game that appeals to a very wide audience by making use of your different difficulty settings. Turn 10, I think, has become the masters of this with the Forza franchise. You know, they let you tweak just about every single element of the game to make it as easy or as hardcore as you want it to be. Meaning that someone like my dad, who has massive nerve damage and carpal tunnel problems in his hands, can sit down and play the game and just enjoy some of the cars that he grew up around as a teenager. Whereas somebody like me can go full-fledged clutch, you know, simulation mode and build a drift car to run on, you know, one of the mountains, fictional mountains in the Forza franchise. You know, it appeals to a massive audience. And that's the biggest thing I would have liked to see Ryse Son of Rome do. Don't just build a game that is the same across all difficulty modes that, you know, slightly increases the amount of damage that the enemies do and makes them a little bit more challenging. Because at the end of the day, the game is a very simple block and counter system. I'm tapping A right now, we're going to counter, and then attack. Now, don't get me wrong, the combat still requires a bit of precision and timing, but the more you play the game, the more comfortable you become with it, the easier it gets, and really the only challenge comes from the slightly more difficult enemies you'll start to face towards the end of the game. But even then, most of those enemies aren't that challenging, and that was another one of the game's glaring issues, that there just simply was not enough variety within the enemies that you encountered. And I think that's what would have been necessary to really ramp up the difficulty on the harder game modes, but they just didn't do that. So I think at the end of the day, you know, you can kind of see very clearly that a lot of Ryse's problems came from its lack of actual challenge for more seasoned action RPG players. A game that comes to mind that came out obviously well after the launch of Ryse of Rome was Lords of the Fallen. Lords of the Fallen, you know, was a Dark Souls-esque experience that, you know, took things a little bit more laid back than Dark Souls. Not by much. Not by much, don't get me wrong, still a much more challenging game than most action RPGs. I would have loved to see the difficulty modes in Ryse be able to bridge that gap. You know, go from the most casual of RPG experiences to the more hardcore experiences like Lords of the Fallen and even Dark Souls. I think this would have been an exceptionally memorable game had it been able to appeal to such a wide audience like that. Instead, they just made one sort of gameplay across all the difficulties that very much still appealed to one sort of audience. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big Dark Souls fan, Bloodborne, you know, Lords of the Fallen, I played all those games. I love those masochistic, just thrash and die, you know, RPGs. I'm a huge fan of them, but I'm also someone who really actually enjoys this game. And I like to revisit. I'll usually play 2 or 3 chapters before I kind of, you know, start to feel the whole what could have been syndrome leaking into my brain. And I'm like, why couldn't they have done this? It could have been so good. Just, why? And I think a lot of that comes down to the pressure of building a launch title for a brand new console, right? There's so much people are expecting. It's a brand new console, you know, they're expecting, number one, the graphical prowess. That's a huge thing to this day. It's why people are upset. Fallout 4 doesn't look as good as it could look, and so on and so forth. But I think it's games like Ryse that also help demonstrate just how important gameplay can be, and why you shouldn't, you know, put all your eggs in one basket, or all your chickens in one coop, or something like that. There's a wolf outside the door sometimes, and that wolf in this case was graphical prowess at the cost of what seemingly was everything else that could have given the game a much more substantial personality. Like I said though, still a really fun game, man. There's still a really high level of satisfaction of roaming around as a Roman centurion. Like, you know, you think about what we think of as modern, like, sort of scout patrols, you know, force recon guys with small teams in the military, and, you know, singular snipers back in the days of, you know, Vietnam, or groups of 2, you know, spotter and sniper, and a lot of the rogue single snipers we saw from the opposing sides in Vietnam. Like, that's, you know, that's the crazy stuff, that the Roman centurions were on that same level, just sword and shield. And they didn't need ghillie suits and camouflage because they were just a force to be reckoned with. Like, that's a really cool bit of history, you know, you could be telling here. Again, it doesn't matter really how historically inaccurate the game ended up being. You know, the basic premise and concept is here, and it's awesome. It really is. And as I said earlier on, very few action games, action RPGs, have looked to capture this era. You know, when I think Roman Empire, again, I think RTS. Let's finish up this fight here. Yeah, you know, just the level of tension that, you know, could have been added also, just the knowing that you could fail a quick time event like that and then be kicked out of combat and have to sort of start the sequence over with that individual, that's obviously going to increase the tension and, you know, the stress on the player, which would have made that 2-button choice a little bit more difficult. You know, we got to dodge those ones. Let's see if we can't get a really good combo going here, because it is still satisfying. There's no doubt that building up a really big combo is still satisfying, and I think, you know, very much like Rocksteady did with Arkham Knight, you know, it feels good to really build up a good combo and then just let loose with your focus. Ooh, that was a good one. Right up in the air, man. Ugh, crushing in the larynx. Oh, dodge. We gotta dodge. Now, one of the other big things for the game that came under a lot of scrutiny, and this is something the game did not need to deal with at launch. No, it didn't. It already had the stress of being a launch title. You know, the amount of hype that was instantly behind the game just because it was a launch title for a new console. Like, it didn't need to have microtransactions. For those of you who don't know, Ryse Son of Rome did have microtransactions. It had a gold system. You could actually purchase gold with real money that could be used to upgrade skills in the campaign, as well as in the game's arena mode, which allowed you to create your own character from scratch. Right? Not a very good idea. Not a good idea at all. Like, yeah, microtransactions, still something that aren't widely accepted, especially in full retail games. So to then throw them in to basically let people, you know, smash through the campaign more efficiently, or, you know, create a more beefy character in the arena mode, just no good. Regardless of how intrusive they are or not, it's the idea of them being introduced for a launch title that I think, you know, that's going to put your game in a negative light before anyone even gets their hands on it, just knowing that microtransaction exists. Because there are a lot of us who don't, you know, we don't care. If it's an optional thing, it's a single-player game, you know, what do I care if someone spends real money to get a car in Forza? Do I think some of the amounts that people are charged for microtransactions are absurd sometimes? Yeah, but you don't have to pay for them. You know, it's when they start actually affecting other people's experiences that I've then become concerned with. So, you know, the microtransaction in this game, definitely not something that bothered me. But again, not something the game needed. It's a chip on its shoulder that it didn't need to have as a launch title for a brand new console. You stand still already? I'm trying to kill you here. Come on already. This guy's a pain in the butt. Finally. Didn't get our thing out there. Lost a lot of health during that. That was frustrating. I mean, because the game has, you know, this full-fledged customization system. You know, you can purchase all these different things and stuff for your character. You know, they thought about it. You know, it wasn't just a BSRPG. It actually had some fun components in it, increasing the different skills and the abilities. But yeah, it didn't come to be. It never really got to see what its full potential could have been. That being said, it is a game that I recommend. It is available on the PC as well as the Xbox One now. If you're looking for something to play this holiday that's a little bit cheaper, I know come the Christmas time, you got family over, you got some time off. It's just fun sometimes to go back and play some old games, pick up some stuff on sale. I very much imagine that this will be on sale during Xbox's winter sale, as well as probably the Steam winter sale. So if you're looking to pick something up relatively cheap that's just a hell of a lot of fun, I still recommend the game, and it's worth playing just to see what I'm talking about, I think. It's worth playing through it to experience the setting and, you know, the presentation, because I think that's all very good. And that's, again, Had they nailed the difficulty and made the game just feel a little bit more challenging overall, you would have had a game that had a great level of challenge and difficulty with some really great cinematics and exceptional presentation. It would have been the whole package. You don't get games like that often. You really don't. So if you guys have any questions for me, or if you have personally experienced Ryse Son of Rome and you'd like to leave your opinions down in the comment section below, whether you played it on PC or on Xbox One, I would very much like to hear what you guys had to say about it. And as someone who maybe never played it, you know, why did you stay away from it? Was it the reviews? Did it just not look appealing to you? What was it about the game that really just never attracted your attention? Let me know down in the comment section below. I'm looking to do more of these in the future. I like the idea of revisiting old games and sort of talking about what they did right, what they did wrong. More specifically, focusing on games that just barely missed the mark. You know, games that could have been really special if it wasn't for just a few small flaws. I think Ryse is one of those games big time, and there's a bunch of other games I have in my head already that I'm going to be looking to cover in the future. It's not something we're going to do very frequently, but you can expect them every now and then, and I feel like it'll be an enjoyable bit of variety thrown into the regular content. You'll also probably notice that we've been taking a break from Fallout this week. I think everybody needs a break from Fallout, myself included. I want to step back from a little bit, you know, think on some things, and then head back into the Adventure Time series, which we will be continuing, but only with 1 episode per week. I was afraid that doing 2 episodes per week would kind of, you know, have it lose its luster, and it very much seems like that. The views on the Adventure Time series dropped off massively. Not that I don't enjoy doing them, but, you know, sometimes you just have to look at things from more of a numbers standpoint and recognize when the series is better off, you know, once a week. So that's just how it's going to be. If you guys have anything else for me regarding Ryse Son of Rome, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.